Wonderful. Um, all right. I'm not seeing other specific questions for here, so I'd like to welcome back all of the panelists, and to get a little discussion going. Rob, we missed you in the questions because we were running a little bit short on time, but I think there was a wish, a sort of emerging wish from the group to dive a little bit more into these regional differences. I saw you partially answered some of the question around where would you produce things, but I think that's interesting also to talk through with our other panelists. So maybe just to start, like what are the main drivers between the regional differences in the footprint that you're seeing? And then if you could just also kick us off with a little bit of the weighing of factors in where we might produce.
Um, yeah, if I would start with the regional differences in availability of let's say uh, cheap or at least abundant availability of sugar sources, um, which are also produced efficiently. I saw one of the questions on this, and I would definitely think of the Netherlands, where we have sugar beet farmers who have a very high productivity per hectare, and also have uh, and we have very strong rules on agricultural farming, on pesticides use, herbicides use. So uh, that would be definitely a good example. You know, obviously, if we look at carbon sources, we could look at C4 crops like sugarcane. Well, of course, where sugarcane produced, we have to go more south, so to speak. Um, if I look at the energy part, besides the raw material for
Did Rob cut out for other people or yes? Okay. I'm just going to give him a minute to get back online. So I was going to ask a follow-up question to you. Apart from the sort of energy and the inputs piece of where you might want to locate precision fermentation, are there sort of social aspects? Can you comment on the sort of level of readiness of farmers and how would that influence the geographic location?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I don't have like facts yet, but I think one thing we can expect is that there is more enthusiasm than we might initially think, and for different reasons. So understanding these different reasons and the source of enthusiasm can really help us make strategies for the integration of those technologies, and also get back to the scientists and companies developing them into, well, these are the places where we see a lot of potential. What are the kind of other technological choices you could make to help integrate in those farms? So I think one thing we might think is younger farmers will be interested in adopting those technologies. Farmers with ethical concerns on the well-being of their animals might also be interested. So that's something that we see. I think in the US, there's a whole movement of vegan ranchers that have developed relationships to their cows and do not no longer want to farm them to exploit them. So there are many dynamics. And that's why I was saying, like, they're a heterogeneous group. We want to uncover this in order to understand where technologies can have the most impact, and what technology developers need to keep in mind while developing them.
Geert, is that consistent with what you're getting back from your farmers? Is there a dialogue already there going on about precision fermentation? You're muted.
Not directly about precision fermentation, about other things and new technology, and also the combination of say, precision techniques, but not precision fermentation. And also what the role of the animal is. That's also that is discussed in with farmers. But it's only we are involved with the 10% they are ahead of the big group. But that group, the 10%, is getting bigger and bigger. And that's also because the young people, and especially the partners of the young farmers, because they not all of them, but most of them, they have a higher education. And the partner of the farmers is working outside of the farm and is bringing knowledge into the farm. So, and also societal knowledge. So I see in one generation, you see a lot of changes.
Yeah, actually, it's quite incredible in the Netherlands how I think it's impressive how conceptually accepted this concept of a transition is becoming in the Dutch societal dialogue. That doesn't mean we're ready in practice yet, but for sure, it's a very interesting time to see the societal change. Yeah.
For one example, I want to share with you. That's 15 years ago. So that's 15 years ago. I told you we have 4 times each year we meet at the farm with policymakers. And 15 years ago we were at the farm of Jaap Korteweg, and he's now the vegetarian butcher. And he then presented his strategy and what he wanted to do. And Jaap and we discussed about the meal we're going to serve. And he said, it has to be vegetarian meal. And I said, oh no, I don't think that will going to happen. We did it, but now 10, 15 years ago, 15 years later, that's not a discussion anymore. So and that's only 10, 15 years ago. So it's moving very fast.
And it's also an inspiring story. I mean, there's a 10% of early adopters, but even before that, there's like a 1% or an 0 point, I don't know how many percent that are sort of the visionaries, right? It's incredible. I want to pivot to some of the other big topics or the themes that came through in the chat. And one of them, one of the big ones was sort of cost. So Etske, I'm going to kind of throw this one back to you. I know you don't have quantitative figures on costs, but there was some discussion. There are already a few products on the market. Maybe you can first of all talk about what's out there, where we are so far, and then also just maybe highlight what are the main bottlenecks in terms of costs that need to be addressed? What are the things that need to sort of unlock to make this realistic?
Yeah, so I recently had the chance to visit Singapore, and in Singapore, you can actually buy some products that are made with precision fermentation, and one of them is ice cream from Perfect Day, and they add whey protein, so not the casein, but the other milk protein fraction, and they call it whey protein from a non-animal source. And yeah, what's interesting is so you can buy this. So I think at the moment probably it's still on the expensive side. I know when it was just launched, you had to pay over 100 euros, or I think it converts to 100 euros or $100 for one bucket of ice cream. I think they also already brought the price a bit below the hundreds, but still, yeah, it's still something to show to your friends, I think, that you have actually eaten it. So, but yeah, at the same time, we also know for other products that, yeah, if production increases, and I think that's also happening for cultured meat at the moment, which I also ate in Singapore. If you can scale up, yeah, then of course the price will drop. So, and it's difficult to predict at the moment for precision fermentation because it's just too early stage and we have too many unknowns. But at the same time, we see a lot of startups. And of course, Perfect Day was the first one, so they are a bit ahead, I think. But there are a lot of startups saying that they expect to launch their products in the coming years. And this is not in Europe, but also in Australia and New Zealand, United States. So I think, yeah, this is the trend.
I've heard it said that precision fermentation, we are sort of an order of magnitude closer on price than cultured meat. Is that roughly, does that sort of resonate with you, or?
I don't know actually what they would charge for cultured meats at the moment. No.
But do you agree with the general concept that precision fermentation products are probably a little bit closer in terms of getting there on cost?
I don't know, because I've heard very upbeat stories about cultured meats and that they managed to drop the price of the process. Yeah, I think maybe they are in competition with each other.
It's a race to the market.
Yeah.
Zoe, you have your hand up. You want to jump in here?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring the example of insulin production. That's also produced via precision fermentation. So we went with insulin by extracting it from bovine to using precision fermentation, and it's now, the synthetic insulin produced is very affordable, and it's part of many people's lives. So I think we're going to get there faster than we might think, actually. And I think some think tanks also share that idea about precision fermentation.
I think it's a really good point, Zoe, because we know indeed the technology originates from the medical industry. And of course, in the beginning, it was very expensive, even for medical applications. But now more and more of these proteins are produced for medical purposes, and the price of the technology really decreases a lot.
So, I mean, just pivoting from that to one of the other big topics that kept popping up in the chat, the sort of regulatory context. I mean, I think for a lot of people, it's even new information that this technology is already used in the medical industry. It's also, as far as I understand, already used in the food industry, but maybe not for proteins, maybe not for food proteins. I don't know who wants this question, but who can sort of map out the regulatory context for us and sort of look toward where we are, are we in regulatory in the global context, and where are we within Europe? Any volunteers?
No, I think I can.
Regulatory? Okay.
I think we have some experts in Wageningen who are also starting to work on this topic. So for next time, we should also think to invite them. But what I've been told, and that's my dog who's trying to become famous. So what I've been told about this is that in Europe, it's not allowed at the moment because it has to pass the novel food procedure. And of course, then you first need to have your product and prove that it's safe. So the expectation is that it will be around, well, at least 5 years in Europe to see those products on the market if there is approval. But that is a procedure that takes some time. At the same time, companies go to the countries where the legal developments are more flexible. So you see startups moving to Singapore to indeed showcase their products. And I think this will also affect in the end how people in Europe think about these products if it's shown in other countries that it's safe. But this is also something maybe for Zoe to think about.
Are you sort of flagging almost a kind of risk for the Netherlands? Because I feel that the Netherlands is really sort of thought leader in the domain of protein transition, but with this sort of prohibitive regulatory landscape, is that a potential risk for the country as a whole of falling behind?
So maybe I can
take that one, Zoe. Yeah, sorry.
I mean,
I think
I think the recent funding for cellular agriculture is a strong message and a strong commitment for not falling behind. Now, what happens on the regulatory landscape, that's a different speed. But I know that there's also many developments in France on the front of cultured meat. I think there's also developments in I mean, there are many things happening. So I can't really comment on the details, but I think that the good thing is that the food products, they're novel food, they are not GMOs. So you have biotech involved in the process, but the output is not a GMO. So I think going through, how we usually evaluate those will be promising. And I think just recently, 2 days ago, the FDA approved cultured meat in the US. So I hope we're not going to fall behind. I think there are many signals that indicate that we won't, because we have a ton of knowledge in the Netherlands in that respect. So yeah, I think it's more a gut feeling that we have everything it takes not to fall behind.
Yeah, you're right. And the recently granted growth fund proposal, I think, is a strong signal from the Netherlands that there's a commitment to maintaining a leading position. If we then sort of zoom out, so one of the other things that I thought was interesting in the chat was sort of there were some questions around the comparison to dairy, specifically when we're talking about LCAs, et cetera, but also a wish to kind of zoom out and compare to plant. Could we not just use plant protein directly? And is it, is this precision fermentation, is this complementary to that, or is this sort of a sidestep? How should we see that? Rob, maybe we can start with you. I think when we look at the sustainability point of view, how do you compare those, and does it make sense, or how are you seeing these technologies coexisting with sort of lower tech plant-based in the future?
Oh yeah, it's a different. It's a little bit difficult question, but I would say that if you look at plant-based protein production, we are talking about different agricultural crops than crops that will be used for large scale precision fermentation based. So I do think there will be some differences there, but I think in the end I would probably the major differences would be is in the end that this is also part of LCA type studies, that whether it's a plant-based protein or a fermentation-based protein, they're going to replace an animal type, where we use animal production, and in the replacement there is you will see differences in how this ends up in the sustainability. So I still think the functionality of the protein that you produce will in the end also will determine for large scale as to what is the real role. And yeah, now we're thinking mostly, of course, about producing cheese with these fermentation based, and whether this is Gouda cheese or mozzarella or whatever. Yeah, these are huge markets, and to me, but maybe I'm a skeptic. I don't see these huge markets for plant-based proteins, but that's my personal opinion. I haven't done any research on that. Let's put it there.
Okay. Well, I'll just say, like, as a consumer, I think that the alternatives to milk are performing not too bad, but I think you're on the right track in saying cheese is still definitely a challenge that we haven't set behind us just yet. Here's maybe a similar question to you. How do you, I mean, with all of your interaction with farmers, how do you see that proceeding? Because we have like a trajectory toward plant-based. We saw an example around hybrid dairy plant from you. We also have this like high-tech precision fermentation. can you look into the future a little bit and project how you see those coexisting or competing?
Well, both of them. So they're going to compete a bit, but also coexist. And I think some, and I don't know who, but some farmers will step to the plate and say, "Hey, I want to join and do something. What can I what can I start with at my farm just by experimenting?" And we have several examples also about farmers who said, we have a lot of waste, for example, plant-based waste, and we want to extract something from it. And they started, and now somebody has a small laboratory on his farm, and he makes oil and he makes ingredients, and he's making a new business. So there more and more, and it starts with a couple of them who will start small and just, yeah, like Willy Wortel, that's a Dutch guy, but try something and invent something, and then if it's practical, for example, to make it hybrid, then they will. But if only plant-based is more attractive, then they will go that path. So they are also anticipating what the market will wants, and what is practical and doable in a couple of years, and what's not, doesn't have too much investments involved, lots of hours, but not too much euros. So that's that, yeah. And it can go very fast in a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's a brilliant point, because we are accustomed to thinking about, at least I am accustomed to thinking about consumers as a very diverse and multi-group collection, but farmers are equally as diverse and sort of multifaceted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have farmers in my group who have customers and consumers at their farm 150,000 each year. So they have a direct link with the consumer, and they know they don't have to do any studies because they know everything about their consumers. But there are also farmers that I don't ever see anywhere. They're just farming. So the diversity is enormously, and that's a chance. And I think that's why in this future the robustness of the sector will become more robust. Yeah, not
Yeah.
because 10, 15 years ago you had 5 types of farmers, and yeah, and now we have 250 types, lots of them.
Yeah, I love that sort of resilience through
Yeah,
diversification. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
exactly.
actually a very sort of perfect summary of the vision of protein transition into the future. I couldn't have come up with a better one. I do see that we are at the time that we've had. I feel like I would love to keep talking with you for hours longer, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So thank you all for your presentations. Thank you for this incredible dialogue. And just want to invite everybody. Our next session in this series is planned for Monday, December 5th, and we're going to pivot to the complete other side of the value chain. We're going to look at the consumer, the role of consumers, strategies for consumption shift toward a more plant-based diet. My former co-coordinator of the protein transition investment theme, Emily de Fett will be chairing that one. Definitely not to be missed. I hope to see everyone there. And again, thank you all for attending, and a special thank you to our presenters and panelists. Great that you were here today. Wish everyone a lovely evening. Yes, applause. Thanks so much, and hopefully see you next time.